Tonight in the Pioneer Sideline, the weather feels like fall is ending, which means that the regular seasons are wrapping up in soccer and volleyball. But that also means it's time for basketball season to start up, and we will be joined by a couple members of the women's basketball team for an interview. As always, we will finish up with the case of the week. So it's time to head on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Kyle Anthony. The men's soccer team has been on a roll, and it seems like they can't be stopped. But at the end of the season, sometimes teams let their foot off the gas, and that can lead to them losing a game that they shouldn't. So we'll send it over to Blaine King to see if the men could keep their foot on the gas.
The men's soccer team wrapped up their regular season this weekend against the KIAC rival Asbury. The Pioneers look to end the regular season on a high note with a win as they head into the KIAC tournament. The Pioneers jumped out to an early 1-0 lead when Lucas Silva put the ball in the back of the net late in the 19th minute. The Pioneers would score again before the end of the first half as Lucas Goldino got a goal for the Point Park early in the 41st minute, giving the Pioneers a 2-0 lead going into halftime. Point Park would score their final goal of the regular season in the 58th minute off the foot of Gabriel Colombo, giving Point Park a 3-0 lead. Point Park would end up winning the game 3-0. The Pioneers finished the regular season with a 10-game winning streak, and they finished with a 14-2 record, a 4-0 record in the KIAC. Their next game will be on November 14th, which will be the semifinals round of the KIAC tournament. They currently rank number 20th in the NAIA Top 25 standings and look to hopefully move up if the Pioneers end up winning the KIAC tournament. They will receive an automatic bid in the NAIA National Tournament with a win in the KIAC tournament.
Now, Blaine, what can we expect to see out of this team in the KIAC tournament?
Well, Kyle, in the KIAC tournament, I expect them honestly to go full out, all go, and just sweep through the tournament. Like I said, they're 15-0 or 14-0 against KIAC opponents, and I expect the same to happen in this tournament.
Now, do you think they'll be able to beat Rio Grande again, who is a top 5 team, and we are their only loss and their only blemish on that record?
Yes, that's true, and I think that, hey, if Point Park gets to go up against Rio Grande, they'll love it because they'll take it as in, if we beat this team, which they can, they're showing everybody in the NAIA that they're a pretty good team and they deserve to be ranked higher, if not possibly top 10.
Now, who are some players we can expect to step up in the KIAC tournament? Because we know about Lucas Silva because of all the scoring he's been doing, but who are some other parts?
Lucas Goldino, he's starting to come up. Gabriel Colombo, he's starting to come up. You see that they go at the 2-goalie system, which seems to work out a lot. They've only given up 1 goal or 2 goals in most of their games, so I expect their goalies to show up big. Goldino, Colombo, I expect them to show up big too.
Now, how big is it for them to be on this tear right now? Because they haven't let their foot off the gas, so all the fears can be subsided. But do you think will continue?
It should continue. My biggest fear is that they have this 1 week, 2 weeks off until they find out their first opponent, which will be the semifinals. And hey, some teams cool off with a break, and they've been on a 10-game winning streak, and the next time they play will be 2 months since they lost. So hopefully that doesn't linger, that break, but I expect them still to be hot going into the KIAC tournament.
Thanks, Blaine. The volleyball team seems to be going cold, just like the weather here in the city. So the volleyball team is trying to heat up as the season comes to a close. So we'll serve it over to Phil Papour, who's back to see if the team can get back on track.
Thanks, Kyle. For the Point Park women's volleyball team, this has been a season to remember, but unfortunately an ending to forget. Back in the month of September, the team rallied off an 11-game winning streak, which included an incredible 28 straight sets won streak. The team jumped into first place in the Kentucky Intercollegiate Athletic Conference in late September with a conference record of 7-0. At that point, the Pioneers appeared to be well on their way to taking the conference and building much-needed momentum for the playoffs. However, that would not be the case. In the final 3 conference games of the season, the Point Park Pioneers went 1-2. The Pioneers lost to Indiana East back in late September and then beat rival Brescia 2 weeks ago. That win against Brescia kept the door open for Point Park to take the conference title from the preseason favorite Asbury. Point Park came into the game against Asbury this past Saturday looking sluggish. Point Park had just come off of an unimpressive performance in the Indiana Tech tournament the week prior, in which the Pioneers lost 3 of the 4 matches. Even though the team was struggling, they had a couple of things going for them. Point Park was hosting Asbury at home in the Student Center Gymnasium. The Pioneers went into the matchup with a perfect home record of 11-0, and it was senior day. This was a well-fought match, and both sides had to earn each and every point. Asbury came out and took the first set 26-24, but the Pioneers rallied to win the second set 25-23. With the crowd on their side, it appeared as though Point Park was ready to take the next set, but the Asbury side was too much for the Pioneers, as Asbury went on to win the third and fourth sets by scores of 25-20. Point Park's final conference record is 8-2. Also on senior day, the Pioneers picked up a non-conference win against Glenville State by forfeit. 3 of Glenville State's players were injured in a match prior to playing Point Park, so the team had to forfeit due to a lack of players. This was a disheartening end to conference play for the Pioneers, but is something that the team will have to get over as the season comes to an end against Shippensburg Tuesday, November 4th. After the final game against Shippensburg, the Pioneers will have a week and a half to prepare for the KIAC tournament, which is being held here at Point Park. The Pioneers will enter the tournament as the 2 seed and hope to ride this seed to the championship. As I mentioned earlier, the game against Asbury was senior day, and seniors Olivia Fisher, Roxanne Grunmeyer, and Kelsey Vett were all recognized for their accomplishments prior to the game. Since this is their last season, you can bet they'll leave everything out there on the court, along with the rest of the Lady Pioneers who now have their eyes set on the KIAC championship.
Now, Phil, what should we think of this losing streak they're on right now? Because they have lost 4 of their last 5 games.
Yeah, Kyle, I'd have to say it's a tough time for them to have this losing streak. You definitely don't want to end the season with a losing streak just like this, especially with that loss to Asbury. But they still have the 2 seed in the KIAC playoffs, so I think they can bounce back. I think they need to take a week off and just get good practice in and make sure to keep their focus on the playoffs, and I really think they'll bounce back. I have no worries.
Now, so you think them losing the 1 seed and now being the 2 seed will be able to fire them up enough?
I think it will, especially since it was to Asbury, who was the preseason favorite. I know Point Park was really gunning for the 1 seed, especially with Asbury being the final conference game. So I think they'll definitely be out for blood in this tournament. I think they really are going to look to try and get all the way to the championship game, which I imagine would be against Asbury, and have a nice rematch here at Point Park.
Thanks, Phil. When we get back from break, we'll take a look at sports from the regional and national spectrum. Also, we'll take a look at how the women's basketball team started their season, and we'll sit down with a couple members of the team.